For the International Conference on Application of Information and Communication Technology and Statistics in Economy and Education, number 13, I will present to you my paper, Incidence of Fake News Shared on Social Network and Risks Assumed by University Students. Although fake news is not limited to online environment, it is within this that it spreads more quickly and easily. The characteristics of the internet, such as instantaneity, interactivity, viralization, and globalization, make the medium a predisposed environment for the mass dissemination of any information. For several authors, this is potentialized due to the technological tools that social networks provide to users for content editing, along with the ability to publish at no cost and without many restriction rules. In the same vein, one of the studies review states that social networks allow users to disseminate large amounts of information immediately. Also, there are studies that consider that the ability of anyone to publish whatever they want make these platforms an ideal ecosystem for the propagation of misleading information for political, ideological, or lucrative purposes. Several authors have pointed to science as the area that has been most affected by the phenomenon of fake news, as the erroneous information that is disseminated in some cases is usually related to the environment, technology, health, and other areas. Such misinformation can have a great impact on society and influence, for example, the creation of practice or harmful or misleading habits. Other authors point to politics, terrorism, natural disaster, financial, and ideological information, and again science, as the topic most impacted by the phenomenon. At the same time, other studies show that young people's preference for social network for information lies in the fact that on these platforms there are analysts, experts, and opinion leaders who lend credibility to the news. In this regard, a study was detected in which they found that young people have social networks as their main source of information. Specifically, they tend to follow journalist profiles to stay informed. Despite the displacement of information channels, traditional media continue to maintain greater public trust over social networks, although it is true that social networks serves as a means of positioning journalists and institutions that wish to have other ways of reaching the public. Because news is no longer disseminated exclusively by the press, radio, and television, other media are overshadowing them, replacing professional journalists with content created and shared by users of social networks. Although the decentralization of information sources with the advent of the internet caused the loss of some of the rigor in the process of communicating events and knowledge, it is true that for some authors, the loss of credibility in the traditional and official media opens the way to the rise of social networks as new channels of information. So in this sense, the objective of this paper is to analyze the perception of university students towards fake news by assessing the relationship between the incidence of fake news shared by themselves within their social networks and the risk assumed by students when sharing news they do not fully trust. Methodology. The type of study was quantitative, non-experimental, cross-sectional, and descriptive. The sample size was 313 students between 18 and 30 years old. The sampling was not probabilistic by convenience, where the inclusion criterion was to be a student assigned to Universidad Veracruzana in Mexico, studying in any semester and educational program in the School of Pedagogy and Administration. A questionnaire with optional response options and Likert scale was applied, and it is a reliable questionnaire since it was obtained a Cronbach alpha of 0.906. The items of the instrument are related with the incidence and assumed risk regarding the sharings of false news. You can see in Table 1 distribution of the sample age variable. From 18 to 19 years old, 37.7%. From 20 to 22 years old, 53%, and so on. Female students account for 67.7%, male students for 29.7%, and other sexual orientation for 2.6%. The distribution for the educational program was as follows: International Logistics and Customs, Administration, Tourism Administration, Information Technology in Organization, Pedagogy, and Administrative Computer Systems. In Table 2, you can see the distribution of the sample school period by semester. As you can notice, first, second, and third semester was the highest percentage with 42.2%. You can see in Table 3 the items of the incidence and assumed risk dimension with respect to sharing of fake news. As you can notice, we have the same questions, but what they changed is the social network. And the question is, I have shared some new items that turn out to be false on the social network. And the last question is, if I doubt the authenticity of a piece of news, I share it anyway. Now let's talk about the result of the study. In Table 4, we can see the descriptive statistical results for the item. If I doubt the authenticity of a news item, I share it anyway. But we are using the variable semester. If we notice, we found that the strongly disagree was the highest option selected with up than 60%. And to verify the hypothesis about the variable school period, semester, the value of 0.674 was obtained for 2 degrees of freedom in the Kruskal-Wallis statistical test. Since the significant value of 0.714 is greater than 0.05, it is concluded that there are no differences between the school periods, the semesters, that the participants were studying with respect to the risk assumed when sharing news by students. In Table 5, we can see the results by the variable age related of the item. If I doubt the authenticity of a news, I share it anyway. As you can see, a strongly disagree option is the most choice selected with at least in 3 cases up to 60%. The exception it's 26 years and older. That here it was a different choice. To verify the hypothesis about the age variable, the value of 6.542 was obtained for 3 degrees of freedoms in the Kruskal-Wallis statistical test. Since the significance value of 0.88 is greater than 0.05, it is concluded that there are no differences between the age of the participants with respect to the risk assumed when sharing news by students. In Table 6, we can see the results for the variable sex related to the item if I doubt the authenticity of a news item, I share it anyway. Again, we can see that externally disagree was the choice most selected. And to verify the hypothesis about the sex variable, the value of 0.602 was obtained for 2 degrees of freedom in the Kruskal-Wallis statistical test. Since the significance value of 0.740 is greater than 0.05, it is concluded that there are no differences between the sex of the participants with respect to the risk assumed when sharing news by students. Now let's continue checking what happened with the educational program. As you can see in Table 7, appears the results of the item if I doubt the authenticity of news items, I share it anyway. And again, strongly disagree was the most populated choice selected. To verify the hypothesis about the educational program variable, the value of 6.764 was obtained for 3 degrees of freedoms in the Kruskal-Wallis statistical test. Since the significance value of 0.239 is greater than 0.05, it is concluded that there are no differences between the educational programs of the participants with respect to the risk assumed when sharing news by students. Okay, in Table 8 appears false news sharing incidents. I have shared a new item that turned out to be a fake on the social network. And you can see appears all the different social networks involved. And in the most selected choice was again disagree, with at least half of the participants. In Figures 1 appeared the incidence of fake news shared by social network. As you can see, the most prevalent value is related with has not shared for most of the social network. Perhaps the difference occurs with Facebook, where the values are more distributed. Well, here in Table 9 appears the incidence of false news sharing on the risk taken by students. The first item that appears is I have shared some new items that turn out to be false on the social network, that it's related with the incidence. And in the second part appear I did not share a news item that turned out to be false on the social network related with advocacy. Well, in the left side appears each of the items, and as you can see, the first in the first row appears the values that are disagree, in the second one indifferent, and the third one where they are agree. So we can check that for both items, the most selected choice again was disagree. And you can find the social networks checking here where it says the letter in the column corresponds to the values in percentage for each of the social network. A for Facebook, B for Twitter or X, C for Instagram, D for WhatsApp, and E for YouTube, and F for TikTok. Table 10 shows that there is a correlation between the variables of both items, since the significance for none of the social networks exceeds the value of 0.05, so the correlation hypothesis is accepted. Specifically for the social network Facebook, there is a low direct relationship with a coefficient of 0.170, while the direct relation is moderate for the other social network. Twitter with 0.4350, Instagram with 0.404, WhatsApp with 0.374, YouTube with 0.415, and TikTok with 0.372. Conclusion. There is evidence of the existence of cases in university students with little predisposition to inquire into the reliability of the information, and who in turn risk sharing it anyway. Furthermore, the correlation of the variables reveals the impact this has on the incidence of false news being shared. According to the previous results, it can be affirmed that the factors of gender, age, semester, and educational programs do not influence the risks taken by students when sharing news, propitiating the proliferations of the fake news phenomenon. However, students who claim not to share news they distrust also come to share false news that they did not believe. This being the group with the highest number of incidences. This translates as a lack of a digital competence, as they are not able to distinguish reliable information from unreliable sources. Although there are cases of false news shared by all categories and groups, the percentage that denies having done so is higher. Then it can be inferred that most students do have this competence and are able to accurately judge the reliability of the information. The latter may be due to the fact that they simply avoid sharing news they do not trust and do not know how to corroborate their information, which is also a reflection of the digital citizenship present in young people, since they take a cautious stance before the risk of sharing a fallacy. This evidence shows that there is still a long and arduous road ahead for Mexican public universities in terms of training digital competencies that will allow them to perform adequately as digital citizens. Hence, it is suggested to develop an institutional educational strategy for university students to strengthen their knowledge, skills, and attitude as digital citizens to perform safely, legally, and ethically when surfing the internet. Focus on the identification of reliable sources, the development of skills to identify possible fake news, and the generations of a critical sense to avoid the proliferations of possible news of dubious origins and reporting information that is not verified. Thank you very much for your attention.